After a hiatus of about 2 years due to COVID restrictions, children will start going to school. In many countries, higher senior schools have already commenced. While education experts have been focusing on pedagogy, refresher training for teachers, and such obvious measures, what has largely been overlooked is the mental preparedness of nursery, foundation, nursery, primary, and middle class students. For many parents, opening of schools may come as a huge relief, as children at home have turned out to be quite troublesome. Many children have developed anger symptoms and at the drop of the hat throw temper tantrums due to the forced stay behind four walls. In this podcast, I will suggest few pointers to ensure that the school experience becomes pleasant and seamless. As it is well known, children's interpersonal journey begins with three foundational pillars, namely inclusion, expressing views and showing empathy, and confidence, as reflected in the assertiveness. Unfortunately, COVID put a stop in building these foundations effectively, as the requisite social interaction was just not there. As a result, the negative consequences of the weak foundations, namely introvertedness, not listening to parents, rebellion, and a sort of lack of affection or attachment or concern, is observed in many children. It is in this light and context that I would recommend that teachers and the school management should not assume that it is business as usual, but look at igniting the non-cognitive elements of children before commencing the regular teaching. As I have always maintained that the sense and smell of interaction with others is what helps our personality mature. The feel and touch facilitates our mental growth. Therefore, for at least 2 to 3 weeks beginning the school, the teachers must only focus on social interaction. Let the children be more at ease with the new setting. This is more true with the foundation and nursery kids, as they would be seeing the school and meeting their fellow students for the first time. As the new restrictions like putting masks is becoming mandatory, kids will have to be washed constantly. As we all know, they love running and jumping around and shout during the recesses, and the mask will become very uncomfortable. Many will try to take it out. Teachers need to watch out. For the teachers, from the socio-emotional point of view, my advice would be as follows. They must provide age-appropriate information about safety measures in a non-threatening manner. As a teacher, please remember, you are likely to be already aware of the experiences that your pupils are having and the specific challenges that your school community at large is facing. Supporting your pupils during the pandemic and beyond will draw on many of the skills you use day to day to provide emotional and academic advice, guidance, and counseling. The importance of learning about resilience, grit, and offering emotional support to the needy are, in my view, critical elements in the early stages of school commencement. These can be done through games, innovative games, and group activities. And in doing so, the first thing that we need to keep in mind, and this is very important, is that one size will not fit all. Different children, different pupils within the same class will have very different experiences of the pandemic. They will also have varying levels of coping skills and resilience, which I talked about, in dealing with those experiences. Having an open mind about what pupils may be going through is very important. How they will be coping with it and what support they will need has to be discussed and delivered in an appropriate manner. Please remember, teachers, that you are part of the team. Some of the challenges facing you as a teacher may feel daunting, overwhelming in some cases, but other teachers in your school, community, and around the world are facing the same issues. Observing appropriate limits around pupil confidentially, this is very important. Draw on other teacher and school leaders for support and guidance will definitely improve your effectiveness. And please share in the teachers community what you are learning with them. Please remember, your team is wider than just your school, in the city or even in the country. Please involve parents more actively in the first few weeks in school activities to help smooth transition. As I mentioned earlier, we must note that each child has underwent unique traumatic experiences during the pandemic. We must appreciate and respect the different emotional responses. Given that there are many kinds of losses that pupils may have experienced over this time, one may see different kinds of emotional response patterns in the children. Children and young people will respond in different ways to challenging experiences. The same child may display different responses from day to day. These nuances have to be understood and the reaction pattern has to be customized appropriately. One more advice, please don't dismiss concerning behavior. When something momentous happens, it can be tempting to see everything in that context. However, we shouldn't ignore signs that something more serious is going on in a very fragile mindset of the children. For example, mood swings. A significant change in mood that lasts longer than a few days. Signs may include low energy, withdrawal from social contact with friends, difficulty concentrating in lessons, being tearful, or laughing unnecessarily. These are the signs you should watch out because these represent hidden emotional turbulence. A significant change in weight, either increase or decrease, as appetite is often affected by mental health struggles, also needs to be washed out. Tiredness lasting for more than few days may indicate changes in the sleep pattern, which can be linked to mental health concerns. Sometimes the children may react in a very angry way without any provocation, which will seem out of character. One needs to watch for those symptoms. Secretive behavior, for example, around meal time or physical exercise lessons, you might notice signs that young person is avoiding their body being seen in a way that's unusual for them. Or on a serious note, any signs of self-harming behavior like visible signs of cutting or bruising on the skin, one needs to watch for that, for the simple reason that the child is not able to articulate its hidden feelings, hidden frustrations, hidden mental conflicts. And in doing all this, the learning, the regular teaching might have to wait, and the teachers have to be prepared for that. Pupils may not feel able to learn at the same pace as they have done before and may show disruptive behavior. Disrupted ability to focus is a common experience for children and young people who have experienced bereavement or, let's say, trauma. Finding time to allow them to work through their experiences and plan for what they need in order to be ready to learn will be greatly helpful. If you are able to schedule them properly, allow them the time I think they would come back to the normal situation as far as their mental framework for learning is concerned. However, it is also important to acknowledge that some children, particularly those who are entering the exam years, say 11th, 12th, and so on, may be very anxious to start learning again and make sure that they are making up for lost time, and that will increase further anxiety in them. Whilst we anticipate that lessons time might feel challenging for pupils as they are asked to focus on learning whilst the pandemic continues, it is also important to remember that unstructured time in school hours, that is the break and the lunch times before and after school, may also be a difficult time in some children. And the most important aspect is that the attachments, we must remember that attachments have been disrupted. Children and young people may have experienced disrupted attachments as a result of measures put in place during the pandemic. For example, separation from parents and grandparents. If both the parents had been affected with COVID, very likely the children may have gone to the relations or staying with the neighbors or grandparents. Attachment is a concept that we often think in relation to infants, but it is relevant throughout our lives. Even older pupils have attachment relationships with key adults in their lives, as well as their friends and peers. If these relationships are strained, disrupted, or suspended completely, children and young people will likely experience a level of emotional distress. Just the other day, I was watching a YouTube where I saw that a child, 12 or 13 years old, lost the mother, and for the next 2 months, the child is just not speaking to anybody. It's just staying alone, looking at the ceiling, not even crying. This needs real attention from teachers and relatives alike. Children may have lots of thoughts and questions about the virus, the current measures in place, and how it will affect their education. Of course, there is a need to make sure pupils are able to catch up on work that they have missed. However, balancing more academic lessons with creative and vocational ones could be one approach to allowing pupils to explore these thoughts and questions in a supportive space. That will only happen when you allow them to talk and express freely their emotions. As I mentioned, they will have lots of thoughts and questions about the virus. We need to make sure that there is an opportunity, there is a time allotted to vent their feelings. These are some measures to ensure that the long absence from the studies and the new experience of getting into the school is as pleasant as possible. So, my final advice will be, between commencing the teaching and between ensuring the emotional adjustment, we must follow a sort of 50-50 principle. We must devote as much time to ensure that the children are emotionally well adjusted, and only then the regular teaching should commence. I think that's one way of dealing with the emotional turbulence that the children have gone through in the last 2 years. Thank you very much.